Awkward Insurance, you silly listeners, you. I am Destin Bryant, your awkward host, and I am so excited for today because today we have a special treat and one that I have been excited about since the One City World Tour in January that was presented by Glovebox and the Insurance Guys. We have a special guest host today and two guests, and this is kind of turning into a 7 Degrees to Kevin Bacon thing, only it's with Glovebox.
Yeah.
So let's start with our guest host today, Natasha Pearl Hansen. Did I get that right?
You did. You nailed it. I know. It's 3 names, but they're phonetic. So thankfully it's not too hard for people, but people will find a way to make it really difficult to say.
I don't know. I kept wanting to say Perlman for some reason. Like in my head, Perlman is Natasha Perlman, but that's not it. Natasha Pearl Hansen is our very amazing guest host today. She is a Glovebox guru, a podcast host of the Future Role Model. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
The CEO and founder of MyBreakupRegistry.com, and I need to hear more about that. The executive producer of MPH Comedy Productions, and she's also a comedian. And you're like the very first comedian I have ever talked to. So I don't even know what to do with
I'm
the
so sorry.
status.
I know. And a lot of people don't because they feel like when they're around a comedian that the comedian's supposed to be funny all the time. And they feel like they're supposed to be funny all the time. And talk about awkward, that makes for a very awkward scenario, like especially, you ladies know at conferences and stuff where everybody's just trying too hard and you're like, let's just calm down. It's okay.
I'm so happy you started with that because I was like, I'm going to really suck at this
no.
joking thing.
No, be a person. Just be a regular person. We're funny enough just living our lives.
So Natasha, where are you from? Let's hear a little bit about you.
I was born and raised in Wisconsin. I can't help but say it like that. And then started my career in Chicago and then was out in LA for 10 years. And I just moved back to Chicago in January.
Now, you were not born and bred or even interested in the insurance field. You just kind of fell into this by way of InsurTech, right?
Yes. Yeah, by way of tech.
Awesome. I love hearing that. So, and you are, what is a Glovebox guru? Explain that for me.
The gurus wear lots of hats. We're a combination of marketing, sales, partnerships, relationships, some prospecting, but more thoughtful reach outs, searching for the right partners. That's a big focus of mine, searching for the right partners. I've kind of done, brand deals and partnerships my entire career. And so I'm all about the right connections. And then maintaining relationships. It's quite a various job.
I feel like the guru title, no matter what company it's with, is the epitome of the and other duties as assigned, at the end of your job description. Guru just takes care of all of that.
Yeah. Guru kind of just blankets you with like, whatever you want to see me as, that's what I am to you.
That's awesome. So she is going to be helping me host 2 wonderful ladies that I met at the One City World Tour in Denver, Colorado. I'm going to go ahead and introduce them. We have Miss Johnny Anderson. Hi, Johnny.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having us.
And then we also have Miss Olivia Hain.
Hein.
Did I say Hein?
Like the ketchup without the Z.
Exactly. She took my
I hear it multiple times a day.
You should make business cards that have that, like a little ketchup packet with the.
Like have the Z kind of
crossed out.
Now, so you 2 ladies are from Legacy Insurance Partners out of Colorado, and you guys are connected to Glovebox as well. How did you 2 meet?
I'll take this. So Johnny and I worked at our last agency together, and Ryan Matheson of Glovebox actually helped train us in the very beginning. And we were both agents there for about 8 years. Ryan did several different roles. Sean Mulhern was producing with us when we started. Then he went to commercial with Ryan, and Andy Matheson, Ryan's brother, was always there as well. It was a family owned and operated agency. He was in marketing and all over. He had lots of different roles while he was there as well.
If you think of how, like when we first started, there were like maybe 8 or 10 1099 agents. And like, think of it like a frat house. And Ryan was like the house mom. So like there'd be times that we're like, we're all going to go to the bar. And he's like, I had to stay here. He didn't even have a true office. He had like a pop-up desk in the conference room because like and he just like always had to kind of be there in case anybody needed him. So he put in his time.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go back to the Discord chat that was used for that conference because one of them, I don't remember if it was Andy or Ryan. I think I made the comment that I was like, I just love how concerned you are about everybody, making sure that everybody brought the right coats. And like, he was like, this is what the weather is going to be like. Make sure
That's
you
Andy.
Make
That's
sure you
for
bundle
sure,
up
Andy.
and put your hat on.
Yeah.
Buddy system, everybody. There was somebody in there. It was one of the Matheson brothers that was really taking
Yeah,
on
Ryan
that
didn't do anything for the
parenting role
conference.
for everyone.
Yeah. It's funny with our roles at Glovebox to learn about what these guys were like previously, because it makes sense for exactly how they operate within our ecosystem. And everybody's got their stories. I mean, everybody's got their insurance stories from past. So I'd be really curious, ladies, to hear.
Oh, we've got
anything
lots
that
of
you
stories.
can-
Yeah.
You gotta share. I want the
Spill the
juicy
beans.
stuff.
Yeah.
We'll wait until after the recording stops and we'll
Yeah,
do that.
The safe zone.
Yeah.
So you two started your career with them, or were you already in insurance and then joined Ryan and Andy and Sean?
We had both been with a captive company for a short while before, so we were recruited into insurance. I was recruited into Farmers. You know, they show you all these residual income numbers, and it, you know, I was looking for a change anyway. I wanted to be somewhere in marketing and owning my own business, so insurance was just proposed to me, and I was like, well, let's give it a shot. And Olivia was with Country, and then also recruited into our prior agency. And we started within about a month of each other back in 2013.
Okay, so that gives me a great question from you guys as you ladies, not you guys. You ladies is from y'all's perspective.
Yeah, there you go.
From y'all's perspective, what are the differences between the captive and the independent market, since you guys have been there? And then we'll get into the uniqueness of what you guys are doing now.
I mean,
Yeah.
everything from captive to independent, you know, one option versus so many. And, you know, as time goes on, there's not much you can do to change other than bring down the coverage, compromise coverage, raise the deductible. I mean, a million different.
And that's with a captive.
Yes, right.
The biggest
Yeah.
comparison that I had was when I was trying to sell a captive product, it was like trying to force a square peg into a round hole. They have like this round hole of where they're competitive and the kind of client that they're looking for. And 90% of the clients that you're coming across, they don't fit into that. So you're trying to like make it work rather than make the insurance package work for the client. You're trying to like adjust things about the client to make it work to get the rate down for the product. And you just end up kind of feeling a little too salesy, pushing something that you know may not be the right thing for that person. And it didn't feel good. You know, I loved insurance. I found out that I did love insurance, but didn't love having only one product.
What did you love so much?
I'm quite competitive. And so I like the feeling of like beating somebody else's policy.
I'm glad you like continued that sentence because I got stuck at beating somebody else.
I like to be
And then it just stops right there. The entire podcast cuts.
Nothing the HR.
I'm HR, so good luck. No, but I also just feeling like you're doing something good for a client. It's like a feel good product. You know, you're not forcing something that they don't need. You know that they need it, and you know that you're giving them the best option out there. So it's a feel good product and being able to just win.
I'm curious what drew you two to each other working together and made you start chitty chatting about what you wanted to maybe do in the future that led you to where you are now.
Happy hours, lots of them. Yeah.
where the best ideas are shared.
Exactly. Yeah, we were just talking about this to someone the other day, actually. We obviously knew each other at our last agency, but we, you know, just as kind of like office buddies, we would go out here and there and talk about client stuff. We weren't, you know, hanging out on the weekend. We certainly weren't planning our departure and legacy. You know, that agency was our retirement. We weren't going anywhere. Eventually, we did start a separate book, but it was still under that agency umbrella. Because the idea was eventually to, you know, to stop the quoting and the submitting, you know, and to build our own additional source of income. So it was like, we kind of called it the baby legacy. It was like the precursor to legacy, but we still weren't planning on leaving.
So we've heard legacy a lot. You guys, Johnny and Olivia are partners of Legacy Insurance. Once again, just to kind of remind you why they keep dropping the legacy name, which is a female owned and female operated independent insurance agency. And I think when I met you guys in Colorado, you were like, yes, it's female owned and female operated, but that was by accident. I mean, it's not like you did it on purpose.
Right.
Yeah, there were no boys that were as good as us, and so we're like, well, we should keep hiring girls until
Oh,
right?
I love hearing you say that.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you guys too, because this is something that I've gravitated towards even just within Glovebox. We have, I had started this months ago, but I started a women's Discord thread because I was like, we keep each other like pumped up and keep each other feeling motivated. You know, we have kind of that like familial and motherly kind of, we check in with our emotional health in the mornings to make sure we're in a good mental space to seize the day. And I'm curious if that's something you've noticed working with women.
Absolutely. So back in November, I think, so we do a monthly training with our whole team where we just kind of proactively will talk about a certain coverage or an endorsement just to kind of keep the changes of the carriers fresh and in front of mind. And so one of our agents will host the training for that month. And our agent, Danielle, she did her training was on self-love. I mean, it had literally nothing to do with insurance, but it was a really emotional and like raw experience for us to share things about ourselves, things about our other teammates. And I think that the connection and the trust that you get in a room full of only females, it was just a really natural and comfortable space to be in. Not to say that if there was a man there that we wouldn't have felt safe, but Olivia and I really talked about that afterwards. We're like, wow, this is really important to
Our culture.
to maintain the culture. Yeah.
Yeah. And I agree. And same with us, we love the guys and we never did this thread to like exclude them or anything like that.
Right.
But it was more of like, oh, we need a little bit of a different way of kind of coaching ourselves within. And also like what we find funny in our commentary, like our thread is kind of ridiculous. And so, you know, I appreciate hearing that because, you know, there's a lot of pieces of what goes into building a strong business that are outside of just the hustle and grind. A lot of it's mental energy and humor and things that just really build bonds between your team.
And having a place that you can go to as a woman and not feel like you're going to be judged for showing emotion or showing weakness, you know, in a male dominated industry, it's easy sometimes to feel like you have to stay strong. You can't show your emotions. You have to be that masculine energy. And so being in a space where you have other females to support you and know that you can let your guard down is really important.
Yeah,
I
agree.
That's awesome.
I'm curious at you two as women agency owners, because I've attended a lot of conferences, even some recently where, you know, I always appreciate everybody's perspective as far as being an agency owner and like how to get stuff done. But sometimes I feel like certain people are a little bit too like, in your face. Like, how do you feel like you stand out in insurance? Keeping a tight ship, but also leaving like this really lovely space for your team to be people.
I would say this is something that's really important. Johnny and I talk about a lot. As soon as we meet someone or if we know someone and they come to us, you know, asking about a position, we really, what's your dream job look like? You know, what does your day to day, you know, we'll tailor it to them, you know, if that's the case, because we want them to like their job. And you know, work is important. It's still, you got to make money. But like we said, our culture, a big part of that is to give you that free space and to have a work-life balance, you know, so what your dream job looks like on day one might change over time. And let's talk about it then, you know, so let's always be, you know, in the forefront so we can make sure that you're happy.
And then in addition to making sure that we have everybody in the position and doing the things that they want, Olivia and I learned very early on after we had started our team over at our previous agency, we have to be very careful not to be everybody's girlfriend. Mm-hmm. We do have to keep that separation. You know, we like to provide really awesome team get-togethers or team bonding events and lunches and our Christmas party and all sorts of things. But there's a point where we have to draw the line and maintain that we're the owners of the agency. We need to keep that separate. And I think we've done a good job at doing that, you know, instead of going out and drinking with the team all the time. Like we have to, we'll go buy everybody around, and then she and I'll go back to the car and have ketchup packets and shooters.
Oh my God.
Did you recognize that about your leadership at first, that you needed to kind of have that boundary there? Was that something that you learned?
We learned it.
Yeah, for sure. Because we were so small
Mhm.
in the beginning. There were it was Johnny and myself and two others.
My
and-
Johnny.
Okay, I was like,
My
no.
Johnny.
My Olivia.
Johnny. Yeah, but to answer your question, Destiny, I would say it was definitely learned. And then as we grew, just became more obvious that there needed to be a separation, for the health and growth of the agency for everybody.
And there needs to be, that level of respect has to stay there. And if we allow ourselves to get too squirrely around the team, or kind of bridge that gap between friendship and an owner or boss, it just opens up it just opens up the door for a lack of professionalism in certain situations, and it makes it hard if we do have to crack down on somebody. It's like, sorry, buddy, we're going to happy hour later, but I have to get mad at you right now.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But I think that, the team, we have amazing people on our team. So, it's very rare that it has to happen, but they do understand that, that we try and keep that separation.
Obviously the
Do
one
you
hanging
feel
out
like
with us
that's a
all the
harder
time.
boundary to keep, with everyone being female and just kind of clicking together like that?
Yeah.
Whereas there's kind of these automatic boundaries that men and women should have together, particularly in the workforce. And maybe as a women-owned agency with all women in the agency, that boundary was not ingrained.
It was,
immediately.
it wasn't like a clear pre-existing boundary. We had to create it, without hurting people's feelings. And so I'm usually the one that wants to play with everybody, and Olivia's like,
No.
it's time for us to go.
Yeah.
Which is really funny because Johnny, you're the mom, and Olivia, do you have children?
Olivia, you're the not mom.
So, but you would think the mothering role would be inherent for Johnny, and she'd be the one to keep the tight ship, and Olivia would be the one playing.
Yeah.
But I also
Play all
understand
the
that,
time.
because as a mom, you want to have your time away too. So that gets to be your this is me out of the house time. And
That's
so
true.
I have a lot of
She says that all the time. She's like,
yeah.
I'm like, don't you need to go home, get the kids dinner or something? Like,
I'm like, I got till 7. I already talked to my husband about this. I am not going home before 7.
yeah, that's,
I have a pretty great question for you guys. I think it's great. Because I think I noticed I've worked with a lot of different teams, whether it be entertainment, technology, whatever it is. I love functioning with men and women for different reasons, but I'm curious, as women that run a company, what you do when team morale feels like it might be dwindling, or there might be a dip in sales or things like that happen. How do you focus on keeping your team energized and motivated?
It's a good question. It's one that we've struggled with in certain situations. I've been desperately trying to hit a certain number of referrals every month along the team, and so at our monthly meetings, it's always not quite there. But instead of just telling our team, get your leads up, we really focused this year, starting kind of early January, going out with our teammates, with the agents, and leading by example. So instead of just saying, you need to go get a new referral partner, you need to call on a new mortgage office, it was, hey, we're going in there together right now. And it has been a really exhausting beginning part of the year, but it was important for us to put our money where our mouth is, to do the things that we've been telling them to do, and making those introductions for our agents to take over certain relationships, and to kind of show them how that conversation would go the first time, so that then when they go out to replicate it and do it again, they have more confidence. They have some conversation starters that they've already seen us do in front of them, and it's worked. We've taken every single one of our agents out at some point this year, or made a new introduction to a new team, a realtor, a lender, and they're then in charge of following up. But we're holding their hands a little bit more than we have in the past.
but it also gives them a different perspective, because we grew our individual books so differently. So whether we go together or go, with one of them and we're not there, they both come back and they say, oh, okay, they pick up something different every time. And so, like Johnny said, if we're giving them a task, it's nice to put a an action behind it. Like, this is how we did it, try it this way or try it this way. And that helps a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah, I also feel like when you're a leader of a team or owners of any business, it's easier for you to say go out and get those types of partners because you have this is my baby, this is my thing, and you have that ownership. And sometimes it can be hard to like pass that ownership feeling or mentality onto your team. So I think that's really valuable to be able to go hand in hand with them because it kind of gives them a sense of, hey, I'm part of this team too, like gives them a sense of ownership and they actually can go forward with that same confidence into those meetings on their own. Do you feel like that's the case?
Absolutely. So the name Legacy came from our prior agency that we were at. They ended up selling to a private equity firm, and the owners made a lot of money. And we were actually in a meeting with when we were planning to leave, or we were meeting with other people in the industry, and somebody said, "Oh yeah, he made X amount of millions of dollars, and good for him." And we're like, we did that. We were the agents that put that premium on the books, and that was our blood, sweat, and tears. And of course, without all of the infrastructure and the ownership and everything, that wouldn't have been possible. But we literally named our agency Legacy because we wanted it to be everybody's legacy. No, I don't want you to show up to work and stay up till midnight making that extra sale or meeting that goal because you want to make Olivia and I happy. We want you to feel the ownership and the sense of pride in your own book. So we try and empower our team. Our 1099 agents do have ownership in their actual book. We try and circle back on that and reiterate off as much as we can that it's not just do the work for us because this is our baby.
I love
it's
that.
everybody's baby.
Yeah. What do you want your legacy to be? Think about that.
Yeah, that's really
a
good.
powerful message. I love
It
that.
is.
And Natasha, you were talking about the ownership and being able to pass that forward and they have a sense of ownership. But not only that, then they gain the trust that you guys are trusting them to go out and do what you're asking them to do. And when they excel at that trust bond builds.
It does, yeah. And just being able to see the pride that they have when they meet a certain goal or when when they have a personal best or something like that. And I mean, it feels good to everybody.
Remind me again when you started your agency, what year? I'm sorry, I didn't write it down, so my memory's failing me.
It was New Year's Eve of 2019, officially. We had started a team previously with a couple of agents at our prior agency about a year and a half before that. So we did have a lot of the structure and kind of things figured out so that when we did start Legacy, we kind of hit the ground running. We had all the sales
Okay,
stuff
I don't
pretty
mean
much
to be
figured
that
out.
girl because I keep saying that I don't want to keep saying this word anymore. But you started New Year's Eve 2019. Did you get nervous during COVID? I mean, you were a baby startup.
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. Right. And then all of a sudden,
Right. I don't want to keep bringing COVID into the conversation, but when I hear about people that just started a venture like the year before, you've got all these big hopes and dreams and everything that's going to be amazing. And you've got a business plan and you're going forward. And then, like, damn.
yeah, it's quiet out.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback off of what Dustin said, there must have been part of you that was also a little relieved in the fact that your lane is insurance. So it's something that's definitely got this massive recession proof aspect to it if you do it right. So maybe you can touch on that too.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, even we're lucky this industry because we didn't really feel, like a lot of how hard a lot of other companies were during COVID because, a huge part of our referral base is from loan originators. They're going through these massive amounts of refinances and, really loyal referral partners we've been working with since day one. So we were getting a lot of leads and, we had the team for that. So we didn't feel the hurt so much. In fact, we were quite busy our first year plus there really, coming out as a brand new agency. So in a way that was lucky for us.
I think the biggest struggle was making sure that we were able to stay united as a team. So Olivia came over to my house. We were super careful about who we were around. And so she would come over to my house a couple days a week. We'd work from my home office, but just trying to get like processes and procedures in place and get our documents and just our workflow together and making sure that our agents weren't at home working from their couch feeling completely alone and left to figure it out on their own. So we connected on Zoom. We had our group chat through Zoom. We'd had these little It's called Goal Getter books. It's like where you can write out, your daily affirmations, your top priorities, things like that. We would take pictures of them and send them out on the group chat just so we could like see what everybody was up to. I think that was the hardest part.
Yep.
It's keeping culture.
I can almost guarantee you that there is not a male-run agency out there that had people writing down their daily affirmations and sharing those.
I'm sure not.
That's, that's awesome. I love it.
It's nice to always look back on those kinds of things too, because I do those for myself. There'll be times where I don't as much and times where I get heavier into the journaling thing, but you forget to give yourself props for the stuff you've accomplished along the way, because you're just setting these kind of milestone goals. And then you get there and you're like, well, I got to set my next milestone. And sometimes it's good to pause and look back and be like, look at these 12 milestones I hit this year. It's pretty epic.
I love that. Being that you were like newer in the agency world though, and you had just started your agency, I would almost fathom that when the pandemic hit, you didn't have bad habits to undo. So you were able to pivot a lot easier. You were still learning how to run. I could be totally wrong. And you can say, shut up. You're absolutely wrong. We went into this knowing exactly what we were going to do and had all of our processes down. But do you feel like being a newer agency, you were able to make that transition easier since you were still working on gaining your processes?
Yeah, I think it was nice to have, Johnny and I in one area, and even though it was hard to keep connected with everybody, but there were lots of times where we were just like zoned in and like figuring things out and then like bringing it out. And one thing I recognize post pandemic is that we didn't have in the beginning that we should have if there wasn't a pandemic was the carrier rep involvement. Like let's come in and let's meet and let's talk. And like at that time we were really kind of just getting acquainted with everything as a new agency. And so we had some time to really like, get some footing and figure some things out. And now, they're coming in and meeting them and, talking about production and things like that. So it was nice to kind of get a head start on like owning an agency and figuring out how it all worked before they were like, hey,
really cracking down on
right.
Can we come over?
Boats were writing.
Yeah, right.
No, I love that. And there was one thing that you said earlier that you take time to have training and each person kind of trains on their own thing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be insurance related, but I love that you pick out pieces of your policies. How many carriers do you rep?
We've got the main 5, that everybody sees nonstop right now in Colorado and in our other states, but then an additional 8 plus that we have access to, rounds out around 20 or so.
Right. So each one of those has a different offering, has different tweaks to their language, have different endorsements to add. And I love that you pick out an endorsement and have your team familiarize themselves with those instead of just being like, these are your carriers, figure out what they do, and good luck.
It's amazing the things that we thought that we knew that we didn't really know. So like, for example, we had one of our agents do it on service line coverage. So which carriers offer service line? Where is it capped? Is it dependent upon the age of the home? Is there a separate deductible? Is there, what kind of impact does it have on the premium? Is it going to be an extra $200 or is it an extra $12? So in like per carrier and breaking it down, and then we keep the slides for the team to reference back to, and it's so helpful. And then you feel a lot more confident selling that one specific thing.
I actually really do love that, especially since you're bringing like all the carrier information in at once. Because one thing that happens when marketing reps come in and they tell you about their endorsements is you're only getting information on them. And then everybody goes back to your desk and you're like, I wonder which other carriers have that kind of coverage too. But not only that, the differences between them. So you know which one might be a better endorsement. And you might, if somebody's really interested in service line coverage, or I remember from being in the agency, there were various nuances about the exclusion on water leakage, whether it was 14 days, if it had been leaking for 14 days or less, or 14 days or more. So I think one carrier at one point, it was 4 days. If it had been leaking for longer than 4 days, it was excluded. Like there's a water leak in 4 days.
Right.
So, just knowing those little details like that, if you sit down like you guys do and say, we've got these 20 carriers, let's focus on the water exclusion. This carrier says 14 days. This carrier says 4. This carrier says within a reasonable amount of time, which is what a lot of them have gone to now. Then that really helps your agents understand the difference and how they can't just, or like on auto, how they can't just say, you've got 14 automatic days of coverage from the time you buy your new vehicle. No, you don't. That's what we teach here at the National Alliance because that's what ISO says, but that's not what all the other carriers do. They each do their own stuff. So I really love that you bring that. And that was my favorite thing having on my desk were cheat sheets that told me the difference between each of my carriers.
And being able to break it down and do like a specific coverage, that it's not like we're going to go over, all like these 5 things. It's one per month that you can really dive into it and absorb, rather than listening to like the first 20 minutes and then the remainder of the time you're like, I there's no more room in here.
Yeah, your brain gets full.
Yeah. Tell me about the makeup of your office. So we've said a lot about training the producers and getting them to go out and generate their leads and everything. Do you just have producers in your office, or do you have account managers, CSRs?
There's 11 of us all together. It's Johnny and myself. And then we have 2 full-time support staff, team members, a client care specialist who handles all the policy changes and anything related to existing clients. Then we have a full-time retention specialist who's doing our reaching out actively to current clients at their renewals to get the policy reshop set up, which is huge. Yes,
can I come
huge.
work for you guys?
User
Because I'm loving everything about this.
Yeah, the correct anatomy.
I love that so much. I love that you guys are focused on every aspect. And there's so much from the agencies that I've worked with where the producers are the ones that went outside and they brought the new business in and they just didn't really understand the coverage that much, which is why the service support staff, I compare that to the doctors and the nurses. The nurses save the doctors' butts all the time. Mm-hmm. The account managers saved our producers' butts all the time. So I was like, you're bigger than me? Whatever. Go away.
Huge piece of the puzzle.
I'm curious just because I'm on the tech side of agencies, so I have these kind of conversations with agents all the time. Because it is a very antiquated industry, and because we're still on the forefront of that technology mind and that virtual type of concept within agencies, what are you seeing there being at kind of the forefront of technology, and what leg up did you have launching right before COVID to help you push that trajectory for your business?
We just used the same system that we had been using at our prior agency. So we were comfortable with it. We didn't really have the bandwidth to go shop around and try out all these different raters or management systems. It was just like, okay, let's go with what we know, get our feet under us. And now that we've been in business for about 2.5 years here, we're starting to look around and prioritize different things a little bit differently. So, automation is huge moving forward for us.
A big plus was that we always obviously knew Sean, Ryan, and Andy. So we would go to them often, like, have you heard of this? Obviously they hooked us up with Glovebox, pretty soon in the agency existence. And, they were like our go-tos for IT, anything regarding insurance.
Yeah.
So it's really been helpful knowing them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just having different resources within the industry. We know so many people because we've been in this business in this area for so long that we've got some really great trusted producers, other agency owners that have also branched out to do their own thing. We're always meeting with other people. We truly love Chad Maxey. He's a great friend of ours, and we bounce things off of each other. He's throwing something out and we throw something out. So just having that kind of meeting of the minds and trust in relationships has been really important.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Awesome. I've enjoyed listening and hearing to you guys talk about the development of your agency, and it's still very much in its infancy. So what is the future of Legacy?
Johnny and I, we always say we're not trying to retire anytime soon or anything. This is, like you said, it is an infancy. 3 years is even though we've been in insurance for quite a while now, this is, Legacy is still fairly new. And we finally feel like we're at a good point, with the agents and the team and, the support that we have. So I can see us building on the support soon because, the book is getting bigger, but the team is it feels like a really good size right now. Everybody kind of completes Legacy in their own special way, which feels really good. So we're excited. Immediate goals are
we don't want to lose our culture. We don't want to grow to the point where our agents don't know each other, don't know each other's kids' names, and birthdays. And that's first and foremost the thing that we're going to protect. And we don't want to lose sight of the need for support staff, because as the book does grow, we don't want to lose clients. We always say writing insurance is easy. It's retaining it and keeping that client for the long term that's hard. And so that's where we're really focused on, is making sure that we have the right people in place to support our agents, to support our clients, to be there and keep the business within legacy.
That is such a big thing. We hear so much on podcasts about growing your book to this size and bringing in new business. And it's all about how to get the sale. There's not very much chatter on how to keep that client once they're in-house, how to service that, how to make them feel like your agency is where they need to be and they don't need to shop around anymore. Because even in an independent agency, when we have so many different carriers to offer, they'll end up shopping. And because they don't come back to you, because that relationship wasn't built for them to go, oh, you've got 20. I cannot tell you how many times I had a client that wasn't in my book that would call to cancel or call to say that they found a different rate. And I would say, oh, well, what carrier did you go with? And they're like, oh, they were. Well, we have Arm&R too.
Exactly.
And they go, oh, I didn't know. I thought you were just, this carrier over here. No, we've actually got 30 carriers that we could quote you. You just needed to let us know. Well, actually, it wasn't that they needed to let us know. It was that we needed to let them know.
Absolutely.
And that's where that kind of broke down. And like I said, there's just not a ton of chatter out there about how to keep building. There's a lot of chatter about how to establish the relationship, but how to keep building that relationship is just as hard, if not harder.
And to retain our agents, keeping our clients and keeping our agents, we want them to know that there's a family here. We don't want to turn over our agents, just, get another person who can sell in a seat. It's once you have them trained and they're here and they want to be a part of what we have going on, we want to keep them for life. We joke all the time, like once you're here, you're a lippy for life.
Yeah.
A lippy for life. What's a lippy?
So we're lippies.
So LIP is the acronym, Legacy Insurance Partners.
So we call ourselves lippies.
Okay. Way over my head.
Yeah.
I thought we were going with like lipstick. I'm like lipstick and ladies.
Yeah, we've got lots of lips everywhere.
That's awesome.
We want to, once our agents are here, once we have people on our team, we want them to stay here until they retire or die.
That's true legacy.
You know what I mean? Disclaimer.
Literal legacy.
Any future on a podcast? Because I feel like that would be one that I would subscribe to on the daily.
It would definitely be really fun.
After that panel talking about podcasts at that the One City World Tour, everybody was like looking at us like, you guys need to do a podcast. We're like, we know. Yes. I don't have any time. I'm busy. So we talked about it.
Since we're on the topic of podcasts, Natasha, tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Oh my gosh. Well, I had a future role model for 3.5 years. I paused it last August when I started with Glovebox because was spread too thin at that point. But I'm actually looking to launch a new one and, carry over my same audience. But future role model, kind of like on the flip side of legacy, honestly, it kind of ties in really nicely to what you guys branded your business after. But as a comedian, I felt like a lot of people that I knew had kind of a lot of hiccups and bumps in the roads on their way to success, and success looked different to everybody. And so it was more like tackling their journey, unlikely things that they did in their past that may not seem like they could be a great something one day, didn't actually have an effect on that, only made it better. So it kind of gave people a chance to get ahead of a story like, oh, I really messed up back when I worked at the TSA and I got fired or whatever, and then be able to tell how they, made something of themselves, turned their life around. I started with just comedians and then moved on to a lot of actors, founders, athletes, a lot of cool conversations that I had on that podcast.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a lot. The transformation from how they kind of hit rock bottom, if you will, to how they climb their way back on top. I try to focus a little bit, some of our upcoming episodes on when people have chosen a second career in hopes that maybe we can get more people to choose the insurance industry as their second or maybe third career. So I love that podcast. So you said that you're looking to start a new podcast. What will the new theme of your podcast be?
Well, I will tell you my dream podcast, and this is something I've been looking for the right partner to launch. I am obsessed with old people. I love traveling the world and trying to like end up talking to whatever old people I can. I'm really close with my grandparents. My last comedy special really involved my grandma. I interviewed her in it. I interviewed her on my podcast, got her whole life story on tape. It was awesome. And then my next special that I'm writing is involving a lot about my grandfather's history and kind of melding those two stories. So I have this dream to start a podcast called Beers with Old People. And I want to be able to sit down and have a beer and like a long episode and help people be able to get their grandparents' story on the books before that person's gone.
I
love that, Natasha. That's awesome. Yeah, we some of our family we're just talking about that. My parents did it with my grandpa, their dad, and you don't think about your parents being old, but you do need to. We were just watching some Super 8s that he converted to a DVD recently. And I mean, it's 1972 and he's there with his long hair, and they're naming all these people. And, it's posterity, it's something that eventually they're going to forget these stories. So I love that. That's a great idea. I really like that. I'm going to volunteer my parents to come on your podcast.
I love that. Ladies, I've had so much fun listening to you and getting to know you.
Let's do it again next Monday.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on Awkward Insurance today. This has been an absolute delight and pleasure. I hope you ladies have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Toodles, everyone. Thanks for hanging around and listening to another awkward conversation in insurance. Stay tuned for new episodes from Awkward Insurance wherever you listen to your podcasts. And be sure to check out the National Alliance on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or at scic.com. Now go forth and be awkward. Toodles!